Welcome to our March meeting. Tonight we're going to have Laura do about the upcoming solar eclipse. And we have 5 volunteers now. We could use some more. You want to say your pitch?
Okay. For April 8th at the Observatory Star Quest, we are going to go ahead and be open to the public. The main event, thank you. The main event totality will be, the excitement will begin near 3 o'clock. However, we are encouraging our volunteers to arrive between 11 and 12, expecting there to be a traffic jam and some parking issues. So getting there sooner would be better. Also, bring along something to drink, a cooler, bring along some food. We may be getting there early, and we may be staying there until traffic clears after the event. It all depends. We, downtown New Haven does not have totality. We, not too far east, we got about, 35, 40 seconds of totality. Thank you, 47. I'll keep her as an encyclopedia. So anyways, we will be able to see and experience totality ever so briefly. And being on the northern edge of the eclipse path, we have a high likelihood of encountering Bailey's beads, which Laura will talk about. So we are needing people we got 5 telescope operators right now. We are planning on live streaming if the internet will hold out. One of the expectations is because of the crowds, wherever the crowds are, cell phone and internet will probably be overwhelmed and won't be functional. So we're hoping to be able to have a live stream from our observatory. If it is cloudy, we are still doing activities, and there are things that we can do to experience the eclipse. Laura's going to talk about those in her talk. And we're going to have a table set up. Members that come will get a free pair of solar eclipse glasses as part of your membership benefits. If people sign up that day, that will be likewise. We'll also have some for sale. Our hope is that we will have eclipse nightlights and FWAS logo nightlights for sale as a means of fundraiser, and also brass keychain. Is that right, Gene? So we're trying to have merchandise, Mel Brooks and Spaceballs, merchandise, as a means of helping our income. I need people from everything from the telescope operators to people that can mill about in the public as we get close to totality, and especially as we come out of totality, just helping remind people when to keep their glasses on, when they can take them off, and maybe 45 seconds after totality, put the glasses back on. Making sure that we keep kids kind of under control, no running around, be safe around the equipment. We will have some of the equipment taped off with caution tape so that the scopes will be safe. We'll also have some larger screens aimed out into the crowd, along with a speaker system that you'll experience tonight as Laura does her presentation. So we need people at all levels of astronomy. Probably the biggest thing is enthusiasm and excitement. It's going to be an awesome event. I know many are going to be traveling closer towards the center line, and I don't blame you. Wanting to see the eclipse is part of my passion, but also public education is a greater passion. And I appreciate those that are sticking around and willing to help out at StarQuest. This is going to be a very rare opportunity for us for a daytime event. Also, in your newsletter, there is a mention of a field trip down to the Charles Brown Planetarium at Muncie University. One thing I forgot to include to the newsletter, please email or call me if you're planning. That way planning to go. That way we will not leave anybody behind. we will be meeting this Saturday, right? This Saturday, 3 o'clock at the Kroger in Coventry. I used to work in the village of Covington at a CVS, so I always get those two flip-flopped. And the details are in the newsletter. But you'll find my contact information. There's a blurb on the front page about observatory training. Got my email, text, or call phone number there as well. Any quick questions?
I got one. All right.
Over
we're-
to you.
Everybody hopefully is getting their email, their newsletter. I'm the author, so you can blame me if anything's messed up. Oh, I was gonna give her mine. All right, well, we shall launch.
And then when it comes to introduce the speaker to your program, we'll need to share.
All right, I've been corrected. I did not introduce the speaker tonight. It's Laura Ainslie. She's one of our good members here, and she is gonna present the solar eclipse. I'm not sure of all the things you're gonna do. but-
Well, I've got one. So yeah, that's my job, honestly. All right.
Take your microphone.
Okay. My presentations are a little different this evening because I've been giving this presentation. This is actually the third time, I think. And every time has been to a vastly different audience. The first one was to a bunch of Boy Scouts in Van Wert, Ohio. The second time was to the Little River Wetlands Group, and I guess that an edited version of that one is now on public access TV. So you might be seeing me. Who knows? Depends on circumstances. Okay. Anyway, I've got my presentation is in modules. So we're gonna have some pauses while we switch between different modules, and those will be times you can have questions or whatever. Okay, so presentation of what we're not. Let's talk about the FWS for a bit. I suppose what we ought to do, do we have any visitors tonight? I'm sure we have visitors. Okay. Does somebody want to talk about the FWAS for a bit? Don't make me have to do it.
All right, you have two new members.
Oh, 2 new members. Okay, cool. Even better.
Would you be willing to introduce yourself?
Yes.
We got a ton of, you don't have to.
Here.
I really want to embarrass
Yeah.
Yep,
We got tons of cable.
yeah. Yeah, am I right to introduce? Yep. All right, my name's Larry Shue and my wife,
Paula Hughes Shoe.
and we are friends of Phil, who introduced us to the astronomy society here, and we've been out to the area at
Stargazing.
times. Yep, to stargazing in times when we were welcome, but we were also out there thinking it was public property and ran into Joe, who had his phone ready, fearing for his life, but fortunately we were safe, right? we were friends. So, but we enjoy being here. Always enjoyed stargazing and looking forward to learning more. So, yep, good to be here.
All right. Yeah, and naturally, the Saturday night before the eclipse should be our first public star party night, assuming that the weather agrees with us. Okay, keep going. All right.
Participants or what? Oh, like I remember
gonna go up my nose any minute now here.
Oh, here we go. Right there.
Anybody has one over 10?
Oh, okay.
This one? Okay.
Cool. Okay, out of the way. All right, thank you. Mhm, if necessary. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. We had to get the screen so the people here can see it. Never mind, I don't know about the Zoom folks. Okay. Laura has a shadowy past, says the screen. Well, yeah, and literally I do. I didn't start out as an astronomer as a kid. You know, I mean, stars were cool, all right, when I was a kid, but I wasn't any great shakes or anything. I mean, it took me until I was well into my 20s to figure out that those 3 stars that were right in a straight line that I saw every winter. Okay, yes, that really was Orion's belt, because the only star map I had ever seen had them right on top of each other, and they didn't look like they were right on top of each other in the sky. So there, okay. But when I was 14 in the 8th grade, my science teacher, you know, we had an eclipse coming up. It was in fact the eclipse of February 1979, the last total eclipse in the United States until the 2017 one. And well, my 8th grade science teacher showed us how to make those shoebox eclipse viewers, one of these things, you know, with a pinhole and the piece of paper in the back and the whole 9 yards. And I actually almost forgot about it, but it came on the news, and you know, the news came on I think it was a Saturday morning, if I remember correctly. And oh, here's an image of the eclipse, and I thought, oh, gotta go look. So it was freezing out that day because it was February, you know, and okay, trying to find a place under one of the windows where I could get an image, and it worked. And oh, there's a little notch out of it. Didn't think any more about it. And I don't know, but somehow that must have stuck with me, because I think the only eclipse that I've missed since then was 1984, which I didn't even know about. So yeah, so I have a shadowy past. Sooner or later with me, everything in my life sooner or later comes back to eclipses. I mean, I met Neil at a lunar eclipse, for heaven's sakes. I really don't remember it, but he does. Okay. But sooner or later it comes back to eclipses, and eclipses have been my thing for many years, and I'm glad to be able to talk to you folks about it today. Okay. And yeah, here's what we're going to talk about today. And this is the first bit is for people that are just absolute beginners, and especially in Fort Wayne, that we're noticing there's a real issue with this. And then it will follow by what I call order of operations, which is what you can see during a total solar eclipse. And then the third bit is Laura's tips and wisdom, some of which is not my wisdom, but hey, okay. Well, the difference between 99% and 100%. Well, after the 2017 eclipse, you may have read this in Sky and Telescope magazine last October. NASA surveyed the public on the eclipse. Hey, what did you see? Was it cool? How did you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? Now, most people that saw it, I think I would pretty much rate it an 11, not having seen a total eclipse before, but you know, and they said in the article, most people would rate it 11. Why would you rate it anything else? But they were onto something, because it turned out it received an average rating from these people of 8.1 out of 10. And what on earth? Okay, what happened? It turns out there were 2 misconceptions that hurt the eclipse's score. The first one is people didn't realize they had to take off their eclipse glasses during totality. Because all the talk before the eclipse was, you gotta have you gotta protect your eyes, you gotta protect your vision, you have to have these glasses on. But nobody really said, you have to take them off during totality or you won't see totality. The eclipse, the sun just disappears. I mean, what's left is so much fainter, you can't see it through eclipse glasses. So that was one thing that hurt it. But here's the big one, the really big one. People drove closer to the path of totality, but not actually into it. And they thought, this is close enough, I'll be good. And then they missed totality. They only saw a partial eclipse, maybe a really deep partial eclipse, but they only saw a partial eclipse. And well, partial eclipse, yeah, that's sad. We've been hearing for at least over a year, I think, that, 99%, Fort Wayne's got 99%, that's good enough, isn't it? Well, yeah, and it sounds like, it sounds like fine. I mean, 99.8 here, this is roughly downtown Fort Wayne. 99.8, that rounds to 100%, you'd think that'd be fine, right? Well, here's the difference between, this is as close as I could get to 3:10 p.m. These are kind of snapshots, so to speak, of videos from eclipse2024.org, which if you go and drill into that website, you can find out what you can actually run videos of what the eclipse is going to look like from wherever you want to care to look for it. And well, this was about, the left-hand image was about the best from downtown Fort Wayne. Notice it doesn't really get dark, and you're probably going to have some trouble seeing it in the back, but there's just a sliver of a crescent. It's probably close. There's probably some Bailey's beads on the edge, but not much. In other words, the crescent is beginning to break up a little bit, but you don't get what you have on the right, which is the corona. You don't get the corona around the sun. The corona is the sun's atmosphere, and you only see that during totality. Now, if you run these videos for, say, roughly just north of the airport, in that area, close but not quite, you'll see a little bit of the corona, but nothing like this. And that image, that was Aussian. I mean, they're not all that, they've only got about a minute and a half of totality in Aussian. And wow, okay. So big difference between 99.8% and 100%. Now, most Fort Wayners, if you want to see that totality, you don't have to travel too far to get southeast of the edge. But you do need to go south or southeast, unfortunately, for most of us. Okay. You know, if you, for whatever reason, you don't want to travel anywhere or you can't travel, you know, there are good reasons why you might not want to leave town. You know, maybe you've got transportation issues. There's somebody you can't leave. You know, you're going to lose your job if you skip town for that particular day. You know, life and death is not going to stop just because there's an eclipse in town. But you know how, say, a photograph of somebody's birthday party? It's nice, but is it anything like being there? Not even remotely. Same thing with total eclipses. You really don't get the experience from a photograph. All right. Oh, and first section. Okay. Do we have any questions so far?
Why don't you see the corona with the 99?
Sorry?
Why don't you see the?
It's too dim. We can't see the corona We can't see the corona with the 99.8 because the corona is very much too dim. I think
Okay.
oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I didn't. I'm listening, but go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
yes, the sky is too bright.
Still too bright.
If I remember, yeah, if I remember correctly,
Huh.
it's either 1,000 times dimmer than the sun or 1,000,000 times. I can't remember which. I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
I believe it's 1,000,000.
Hmm.
So very much dimmer.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
What to look for during a total solar eclipse? First contact, crescent sun, go have fun for a while, da 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 da. Bailey's beads, the moon and its shadow become visible. Some of this stuff I don't really address, but there it is. Okay. Second contact, totality begins. Prominences in the chromosphere, corona extent and shape, planets and stars visible. Landscape darkness, sunset on the horizon, end of totality approaches, third contact, totality ends. And everything repeats backwards until you reach the fourth contact, which is when the entire eclipse ends. Now, about those contacts, eclipsewise.com is the only website I've encountered that gives the timings for all four of the contacts. Some of them, some websites are selective. They'll give you first and second, or second and third, or something like that. But Eclipsewise gives all four contacts and explains it right there. Partial eclipse begins C1, total eclipse begins C2. Although their times are universal time, if I remember correctly, so then you have that hurdle. What can I say? First contact is the predicted moment when partial eclipse begins. Can you see just a slight dent in this image? There's just a tiny little dent in that image, right over here. Fun fact, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, first contact is always going to be somewhere on the right-hand side of the sun. In the Southern Hemisphere, it'll be on the left-hand side of the sun. I discovered this when we were playing with a eclipse projector of all things from the former Norwalk Planetarium. Okay, now for the impatient, and you know who you are. If you're one of those people that can't stand waiting, or if you literally can't wait because you've got things you have to do, well, I give you permission to skip first contact. As we just saw, it is not that exciting. In fact, I missed first contact in 2017. We were at Giant City State Park in Southern Illinois. I was in the nature center looking around at the time of first contact, and missed it because I was more interested in why do they call this place Giant City, and why do they say that it's so unglaciated, and well, everything looked glaciated around where I was. Turns out it's right on the edge of the glaciation. Anyway, just be ready to go at 3 p.m. or real close to it, because that's when things start to speed up. 3 p.m. for this eclipse. And now for the rest of us, we've got things we can do here. Fun experiment. The Boy Scouts kind of got into this. As the light level dwindles during partial eclipse, people generally don't notice. Now, why do you think that is? I think we all know it's because your pupils adapt to the changing light level. So, as a fun experiment, take pictures of your friend's face periodically during partial eclipse. Make sure they take their eclipse glasses off. Obviously, don't look at the sun. Take your eclipse glasses off. Look around for a few minutes until your eyes adjust to the proper light, and then take a picture and ask them, "Hey, do things look different yet? Now, do their pupils look different to you?" You'll probably see the pupil open up. You should see the pupil open up as time goes on. Now, under shade trees, we might see images. I said this to the Little River Wetlands group and they started laughing because they know, as I knew, what shade trees. This is early April in northern Indiana. We don't have shade trees. Well, there might be, I don't know, we've been having an early spring. So I don't know, somebody might manage to find a tree someplace that has enough leaves on it that it might make a few crescents. Look around, I don't know, we might find something. This is what we saw under our tree at Giant City State Park. This wasn't our seat, but that's okay. And then since we don't have, since we're probably not going to have the shade trees, we're going to have to use other things that have holes in them. Colanders are the gold standard. You know, here's mine. That's not mine, but it could have been. Actually, it looks pretty much exactly like it. Maybe that is ours. Okay. Anyway, there are all sorts of other things you can use to make holes. I actually brought another one. This is going to wind up being a cat blanket after everything is over. I found it when we were, I found it recently and I've lost the yarn, I've lost the pattern. It's what crafters call a UFO. It's an unfinished object. It's never going to be finished. But if you stretch it out, look at those holes. Those should make some awesome crescents, I think. So I think I'm going to spread it out between 2 sticks or something, and we'll let people play with it during partial eclipse. And back to pinhole projectors, the shoebox is standard, but don't let yourself be limited. Try longer boxes. You don't have to use shoe boxes. Extra viewing holes. I built some in 1994 with 2 viewing holes for. Sure. Okay.
We're sharing the wrong screen.
What?
My fault.
Oh, you're sharing me. Okay.
Look at operation. Our apologies to those that are watching on Zoom. We
Keep going further
picked
down.
the wrong
Further down.
order of operation.
Yeah, that's the one. Right there.
You got the presentation. Here we go. Hey.
There we
You
go.
got it.
All right. Yeah. I built some boxes in 1984 with 2 viewing holes so that people that had small children could show the eclipse to them. Okay. Then you have viewing hole on the side. This is one I made last fall, actually. Long box, notice, but it's so long and so narrow that there's no way you're going to be able to put your eye up to that and not hide the pinhole. So I cut a viewing hole on the side. I'm calling this one Bazooka Joe. Because you wind up aiming it like a bazooka. It's fun. Okay. And then another possibility is a wax paper projection screen in the back. In other words, instead of having the white paper in the back, you cut this out and put wax paper over it and use it as a projection screen, which is nice for big, bulky boxes. This is me in 2017 discovering too late that my projection screen box needed feet or legs in order to function in grass. I suppose it could have been worse. It could have been windy. That thing weighed nothing. Because as you can see, it's 2 24-pack Coke and decaffeinated Coke boxes. No, caffeine-free Coke, sorry. This is the best picture we managed to get of the image that came out of that thing. And this year, I think I'm going to ditch boxes altogether and just have one display. I'm going to swipe Neil's laboratory ring stand, which he's got things like that sitting around, believe it or not. Put a pinhole on the ring stand and aim it at whiteboard. Aim it at a piece of whiteboard. That should be less likely to blow around. All right. So if you're really caught short, you know, if you've been busy or you forgot about the eclipse altogether and you're caught short, well, do the waffle fry, as I call it. You hold your hands with the fingers out, hold your hands, fingers outspread, and cross them. Like that. Yeah, exactly. Now, I love this illustration. You notice anything interesting about those finger shadows? I mean, yes, you've got crescents between the fingers, but the fingers themselves are crescents also, if you look at it. And people talk about the bright crescents, but apparently, I just read recently, the image of something that's straight, the shadow of something that's straight, when you get into a really thin crescent stage, will become crescent shaped. So I have to really look, I'm going to have to look for that this time. All right. So extra for those of us who are not eclipse day only observers. The old school version is eyepiece projection. And the good thing about that is that multiple people can look at the same time, which is great when you don't have a lot of scopes and you have a ton of people. It's great. Now, the cons. Where should I begin? It's best done with small refractors. Reflectors, you've got to have an off-axis mask to not use the entire field of view, because you don't need all that. You don't need all that light, and you really don't need all that heat. And Schmidt-Cassegrain's catadioptrics, no, not at all. Eyepieces to use for this, you really need older eyepiece styles, and they usually say, well, just use something cheap and you don't care about. Well, there's certain styles of eyepieces that work better than others, apparently. Orthoscopics, RKEs, which, you know, hard to find those. Colossals.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
A lot of the smaller refractors that have been sold last 10, 20 years have plastic eyepieces. They could have glass for the lenses, but the frames are plastic and they can heat up and melt. We got a report from one of the members that their sun funnel burst into flames. So what we're using are 1.25" eyepieces that are the right type. And we are using a 0.65 or 5.6 to 1.25" adapter metal to work as an additional heat sink. And also it gives a much better, larger image.
Okay. Yeah, and he just mentioned, I have more cons, and one of them this can melt your eyepiece cement. Plastic components may burn. Some people have lost finder scopes that were plastic. Okay, you need some way to keep people away from the scope, because you can burn yourself on if you get your hand in the wrong place, if you touch the wrong thing. Thermal burns are absolutely possible. You've got to have a special finder some way. And yeah, we got some of these. Can you hold it up to the camera?
Go ahead and pass that around.
Or pass it around? Yeah, we've got a 3D printed solar finder.
Talk to Jim afterwards if you're curious about getting one, or the file to print it up. And if you have a regular finder scope on your telescope, just remove it all together. Even if it's capped, if you're around public, somebody will pull the caps off or bump them off. Just best not to have your finder scope on.
I thought this was cute. Al Nagler being evil as a kid. Okay, then we have the new wrinkle, or newer wrinkle, the sun funnel. This is basically eyepiece projection without the chance of people getting hurt because they can't get their hand or something into the light path. Now, you can still melt or burn up a plastic eyepiece though, and way too many cheap eyepieces are plastic, and we've found that out. So yeah, okay. Full aperture solar filters. So the serious people are definitely have these things. There are aluminized mylar film, which those are inexpensive and they work pretty well. I've never had a problem, but you know, some people are picky, and then some people are really picky. And then you have glass solar filters. Glass solar filters are really nice. And that said, not nearly as nice as a Herschel wedge. The best view of the sun I have ever had was through a Herschel wedge. I'll have to let somebody else talk about that. I know nothing apart from I've seen it. I've seen it in action. All right. Now back to the rest of us. Pig out on Eclipse foods. Every time I open something, I see something different. Somebody mentions Fago moon mist, moon pies, starry soft drink. I forget. There's so many other ones. Or if you're into making your own, if you're into baking or cooking or whatever, why not make your own crackers and put big holes in them and use them as your pinhole projectors? Then again, I found commercial crackers work just fine too, although I don't know how well you're going to see those crescents in the back. Tiny holes, but they still make cute little crescents. All right, and now I have another kind of a experiment question sort of thing. If you're observing the eclipse at home, you set up a sprinkler. I mean, we've all set up a sprinkler under a regular sun just to see what see the rainbow. That's cool. All right. Well, set up a sprinkler and see what happens to the rainbow. I mean, if you're in total eclipse, what will happen to the rainbow? Will the colors still be there? Will they get dimmer? Will they disappear altogether? Will you maybe have different colors? I don't know. If you're close to totality, what will happen? You can take pictures. This would be awesome. Something to think about. All right. Welcome back, the people that couldn't be here for the partial eclipse phase, you know, the small partial eclipse phase. Welcome back, people outside, people who are way outside of the zone of totality will see something like this. All right, watch for weird plant, animal, and human behavior. Most animals and plants won't react though, but check out those humans. Some of those humans are really strange, I tell you. So how does the eclipse make you feel recorded? In photography, drawing, painting, whatever. What's your art form of choice? Use it to record what you see and how you feel, or do it periodically during the eclipse if you have the time. I didn't really have the time during the eclipse, so I took a lot of notes afterwards and wound up writing about 20 pages. And my final conclusion, you know, what's it all about? What's this eclipse thing all about? Wound up being, and this may be familiar to people that are really students of the TV show Top Gear, or maybe Keith Moon, I don't know. Let's see. It's something that Alice Cooper said about Keith Moon, that everything you've ever heard about Keith Moon is true, and you've only heard 1/10 of it. And that's about the way it is with total eclipses, honestly. Anyway, I could not find a slide for this. I tried. With the sun approximately 90% hidden, the sky starts looking weird to everybody, not just people that are in love with eclipses and are paying attention to it. It transitions from that usual blue to a weird silvery gray, hard to describe. Shadows become very sharp. And as things go on, the temperature starts falling. Make sure you take a jacket with you if you're leaving home. You might need it. especially during totality. And I set this thing up and was all, yeah, shadow bands, and then started reading, and apparently not always are shadow bands seen. I don't know. We'll see. But just before totality, if you put a white sheet on the ground, it helps you to see those crescents anyway. But shadow bands, probably hard, once again, hard to see from the back. They kind of look like those light bands on the bottom of a swimming pool, and they're caused by something similar with air movement in the atmosphere above you. They also might be visible if you've got a white car. I saw a picture somewhere of really good shadow bands on a white car. Of course, then it disappeared. I don't know what happened to it. And there's also a famous illustration of etching or something of shadow bands on a house in Italy. And then the moon continues moving. Notice you start those in the left-hand image, it still looks like the sky is moving in from the left, but now the center and the right one, you start to actually see the moon. Just before totality, you start to actually see the moon as a separate thing. And that's kind of exciting. Although I have to say, I didn't see that in 2017 because I kept my eclipse glasses on. I was such a dork. All right, second contact, totality at last. Make sure you take off your eclipse glasses so you can see the corona. That's the atmosphere of the sun streaming off into space. Eventually it becomes the solar wind and causes auroras on the earth. So, hey, cool. All right, for a split second, from this, if you're along the center line, you'll only see prominences from a split center, for a split second. You'll probably only see them in photographs. I'm guessing that toward the edge of totality, such as StarQuest, you might possibly see prominences with optical aid. I'm not sure, but the color, if you think you're seeing prominences, they should be red or hot pink. If you're seeing something violet, and it goes, like purple, and it goes all the way around, no, that's color correction problems with your whatever optics you're using. In my case, it was binoculars. No. Look around you. You'll see this looks like sunset, but it's all around you. 360 eclipse sunset. If you're in a place that doesn't have a lot of trees, you should see this. Now, I'm guessing you'll see it from Waynedale and New Haven. It's not going to be totally dark, and it will not be all around you. You'll be totally bright, probably toward the north, and then it'll be really dark toward the south. Freaky looking. And this was Russell's photograph. The camera he was using had a panorama setting, and well, it needed to be on a tripod, but all of our tripods were in use at the time. But you can still kind of see the sunset, especially in the bus windows. All right, for this eclipse, in the sky around the eclipsed sun, you might find Venus and Jupiter. Venus is brighter. It doesn't look brighter here particularly, but Venus really is brighter, and it'll be fairly close to the sun on the right. Jupiter's fainter, and it'll be on the left. Venus, actually, you should probably see it for totality. I would think it would be visible from Fort Wayne, even in Fort Wayne. I don't know about Jupiter. We'll have to see about that. Oh no, third contact is here. Here's Bailey's beads. Okay, Neil, yes, pass it around.
We have two 3D model images of craters. The small one is from
Grimaldi.
From the moon. This was one of the craters from Mars, but same concept. Hold them up to the lights and you can see the silhouette of the rough edges.
You can see where the crescent on the upper left there is broken into bits because the sunlight is coming through mountain, quote unquote mountains on the moon. They don't necessarily have to be mountainous at this point.
What will we see? We see partial eclipse, or we get enough? Probably don't get enough of that.
I think what you're gonna have, from what I've read, is you're gonna have Bailey's beads for so long that you're gonna think that you're gonna miss totality. And then you'll have to, and then eventually totality happens. Eventually. I don't know if, yeah, we'll get to Ainslie's corollary later on. Yeah, okay, you've heard of Sperling's 8-second law. Yeah, anyway, we'll get to that. So, okay, totality's over. What happens now? Well, just everything that happened before, but in reverse. Give me Bailey's beads and then back to the thin crescents and so on and so forth. Well, what really happens is everybody jumps in their cars and races off to sit in traffic. I would not want to be in Indianapolis for afternoon rush hour on April 8th. Ugh. You know, hang around a little while and talk to people. If you know, find people and talk to them. It's great, honestly. Fourth contact, end of eclipse. Let's answer. I would ask for questions, but let's answer the really obvious one first. When's the next eclipse? Everybody asks that. Well, it depends. If you're going to be satisfied with that little sliver, like that first contact image, that you can't even see this without a telescope, you have all sorts of options coming up. Although, if I remember correctly, there are no total eclipses anywhere next year. They're all partials. There are a couple of good total lunar eclipses, but total solar, no. For significant events, you're going to have to wait. This one, the sun is only about half eclipsed by area. This is 2029, January 14th. So we would be probably fighting weather and won't see anything. This is the next total eclipse in the continental US. Now, a lot of people are saying it's 2020, it's 2045. And well, maybe, yeah. This one is the actual next total eclipse in the continental US. It's seen in Montana and I believe Wyoming near sunset. People are blowing this off because 2045 is so amazing. Look at the duration down in the lower right. 6 minutes, 6 seconds maximum. Yeah. Yeah, if you remember the eclipse in 1991, this is a Saros brother of it. This is a member of that same series, and they're still really long. On the other hand, notice it's at maximum just off of the coast of Florida. You want to go to Florida in hurricane season? I don't know about Florida and hurricane season. Anyway, yeah. Now, the final 2 eclipses in the list are things to tell your kids and grandkids about because I doubt that anybody in this room is going to see them. But anyway, does anything look familiar about this particular path? This is okay. April 8th, the eclipse belongs to Saros 139. So does this one. The path, it's the same path, it's just shifted a little bit. I wish I could talk more about the Saros because it is fascinating, let me tell you. It's basically the way people used to predict eclipses literally 2,000 years ago. It's the way people predicted them. And then finally, here's the one everybody wants to know about, the next total solar eclipse in Fort Wayne, according to current predictions. 2099, September 14th. I forget what the duration is in Fort Wayne. It's somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes, if I remember correctly. All right, here's the end. Next.
Go ahead and explain this while I get you set up. For third part.
Oh, okay. This is another pinhole. This is another pinhole thing that Russell printed off. It's, I believe it came from the NASA website.
Oh.
It also functions as a memento of this particular occasion. So yeah, I thought so.
About this? Not really at work, but,
Hey, Laura, I just had a comment
Yeah.
to add. What you've shown is really great. One of the ways to show a partial that you didn't mention is pretty interesting. You can take, everyone has used a mirror to flash
I
signals.
forgot.
And if you find a building that is facing north, and then you go to the north part of it, and you face to the south and project the image out of the mirror to it, you'll find that the shape of the mirror doesn't mean a bit.
Mhm.
It forms the image like a pinhole, and you can project a bright image on the wall of a building. Okay.
Thank you, Jean. I forgot, I brought a mirror and I forgot all about it. What I was shown last fall was instead of using the entire mirror, take a card or a piece of paper or something and cut a hole out of it. And it does not have to be a round hole. I guess this guy uses triangles, deliberately uses triangles just to prove that the shape doesn't matter, that you're actually projecting an image of the sun. But he cut a hole and then reflected the eclipse into, this was I believe it was last October's eclipse, reflected it into a darkened, actually it was a porch with a roof over the top of it. He projected it in there, so it was very visible. It was nice. Yeah, forgot. I've had this thing in my pack this whole time and forgot all about it. Thank you. All right, tips and wisdom and a few stories. Tip number 1, don't delay. Figure out where you want to go. If you decide you want to go someplace in particular, find out what time things are going to happen there and get the information written down or printed out as soon as possible. The story behind these photographs is a real good reason why. I blame the National Weather Service. Those pictures and the ones to come came from, we took from our backyard on the 10th of June in 2021. And I think a lot of people didn't realize there was even an eclipse around here that day. I might have said something to people, except that this was on a Thursday, and the whole week beforehand, the local, the National Weather Service was rain, clouds, rain, rain. And yeah, it was bad weather all week. I actually had a vacation day set up, and I canceled the vacation day because the forecast looked so bad. So you can just imagine my delight when I walked out of the house at 5 o'clock in the morning, because I go to work at 5:30. I walked out of the house about 5 o'clock that morning and it was clearing up. There were 2 tiny little clouds on the horizon and it turned out they were dissipating. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to get to see this. Oh, because the sun was going to rise partially eclipsed. Wow. But it turned out, so I went inside because I hadn't gotten any information because I thought I didn't think we were going to see anything. So I went inside and it turned out the internet was jam-packed, or at least the bits of the internet that related to eclipses seemed to be just jam-packed with other shadow lovers that were trying to get information from the same websites I was trying to get into. So I didn't have any luck. I had no idea what time the sun was going to rise or exactly where it was gonna be on the horizon when it did, because, with it being a sunrise eclipse, you want to be looking at it right away. Didn't know where it was gonna be or anything. So we wound up having to wing it. This is one heck of a lucky sky, but those colors are gorgeous, I thought. Here we go. I really should have printed off my info ahead of time. I mean, I know I looked it up at one point, but I did not print it off, and that was a bad idea. So don't delay. Because if we'd known, we could have found some place that had a lower horizon and no telephone poles. Now, here's one, even more dramatic. Atmospheric optics combined with an eclipse. I have no idea why I saved this photo off. The photographer described this as the most stunning sunrise of his life. This was on the astronomy picture of the day in October 2023. I can absolutely relate. It's neat. All right, Sperling's 8-second law. No matter how long the eclipse actually is, it only feels like it lasts 8 seconds. This is an excerpt from an article in Astronomy magazine in 1980. All right, here's the corollary that I mentioned earlier. The final minute before totality lasts 1 solid hour, or even longer if you have spinal problems. Like, oh, my back. Yeah, even long, yeah. Seriously, I mentioned this in 2017, the meeting after the eclipse. Everybody agreed completely that they experienced the same thing. I've experienced it at other eclipses. I've experienced it at occultations, for heaven's sakes, which are kind of like eclipses, but don't necessarily involve the sun and moon. Yeah, this.
Such, there's a daylight occultation of Venus by the moon on April 7th.
Do you mean the day before the eclipse? Daytime, where? Here?
Here,
Seriously?
100%, yeah.
Ooh,
But it's like 1 in the afternoon or something, so.
yeah. That's gonna be rough to see. Okay, so that's going to be the invisible covering up the barely visible, if you know exactly where to look.
Yeah.
It's gonna cover Venus, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. This is ironic because the thing that really got me into astronomy in the first place was a twilight lunar occultation of Venus. In other words, the moon covering up Venus. In twilight, it was stunning. It was apparently about a once in a lifetime event. So I feel fortunate that I was able to experience that. Okay. Tips number 2 and 3, don't lose track of time, backed with be careful of your eyes, Jim. They won't give you new ones just because you need them. All right. Beginners can be hazardous to your vision. At least they kind of were to mine a little bit. 2017, we went on a bus tour to see the eclipse, and Russell and I were, I think, 2 of the 3 people on that bus trip that might have ever looked through a telescope before or seen anything like this. So, they didn't know what they were doing, and yeah, anyway. And we've all got to start someplace. Well, Russell and I took a bit of stuff with us. I forget the list. I'm not gonna bore you with it, but it was basically everything but the kitchen sink. Totality came, and I was so unprepared. I was trying to look through my binoculars at the corona, which you can do during totality. It's faint. But I didn't put the rubber eye cups down. And so Sperling, seemed like it took an age to get those rubber eye cups to go down. Okay, I'm looking at the eclipse sun through binoculars, and wow, this is awesome. I lost track of time. And I was observing with people who weren't aware that time was important in this case. And so third contact took me by surprise. I was very lucky. I flinched away from the light. Wound up having sore eyes for a while, but my optometrist dilated my eyes last year, and I told him this story, and he said, if you hadn't told me that happened, I wouldn't be able to tell. So thank goodness. No lingering effects on my vision. But moral of this story, set an alarm for the end of totality. I didn't have a smartphone at that time. I do now. I have an alarm set up already for the end of totality. All right. Oh, and just an FYI, just a side note, this has nothing to do with the last. This eclipse, like all of them, spans the best part of half the Earth. It's only totality that has that limited distribution. And notice over half of the path is over the ocean, of all things. All right, tip number 4, be prepared. Make a list, check it twice. Pack your vehicle the night before. Allow extra time to get where you're going, because it's very possible there are a lot of other people that are trying to get there along with you. And so plan to get there early. These are the highlights. See the Indiana Department of Homeland Security website on the eclipse for much, much more. I spent some time there last month. It was interesting. Okay. Sorry.
I had something.
Yes,
From Indiana-
I was hoping you would, actually.
Stand next to you.
Yeah.
You stand here. Yeah, perfect mic stand right there.
Okay.
So anyways, from Indiana Homeland Security, which works with each county emergency management agency, which Russell's the deputy director for Wells County. It's through him, got the information. They're expecting traffic to be bad going to, and especially from. How long did it take to get back to Fort Wayne? Well, was it 45 miles and how many hours?
27 miles traveled took 3 hours. This was coming from Giant City State Park.
So expect that to be a problem. Make sure your gas tank is full, because if you happen to be in an area, whether it's in Indiana or anywhere along totality, it is possible that if the weather has shifted and there's a clearing, they might be drained of their gasoline at their gas station. So Homeland Security says expect no gas. So make sure you fuel up ahead. With the communications of the cell phone and the internet possibly being jammed, carry cash. That way you won't be stuck with that little waiting and processing circle while you're at the checkout. Also, they recommend taking some snacks and some water with you. Be patient. Southern Illinois and especially Kentucky had a big problem. There were people that would go ahead and come, bring their stuff, observe it, party, and then leave their trash behind. Some people on their way to the eclipse as a last minute thing stopped off at Walmart or who knows, Dick's Sporting Goods, got themselves a tent and a sleeping bag, and they weren't going to plan on camping the next year or two. They just left all that trash behind. So be sure to clean up after yourself. Expect there to be a shortage of restrooms wherever you go. As an example, the Bluffton Parks Department down in Wells County is not doing a program per se, but at their key parks that are open to the sky, they're setting up extra porta potties. Some areas won't be doing that. And you may end up having one porta potty for 200 to 500 people. Along the eclipse line, populations can swell. For Little Old Wells County, which is not on the center line, the center of totality, they're expecting that it could be somewhere between 50, if the weather's bad, on up to 50,000. The population of Wells County is 28,000. So this will have a big impact on transportation, ambulances, and everything else. So pack yourself a first aid kit and just be patient, prepared, and give encouragement to everybody else who might be losing patience in this. Russell, anything else? Okay.
All right. All right. And now we hit to the elephant in the room. What if it's cloudy on eclipse day? Because that's what most of the, we didn't really get into the eclipse until relatively recently because it just sounded like it was going to be bad.
88% clouds originally forecast.
Yeah, like not good. Anyway, well, what if it's cloudy on eclipse day? That depends on where you're at and how cloudy it actually is. If you're under totality and you just have haze and cirrus clouds, well, like what we did this afternoon, it might make it a little harder to observe, especially with these pinhole projector things. Too much haze, those things won't work. I speak from experience. May 20th, 2012, I got hazed out. It was very sad because that was a sunset eclipse. Okay. Anyway, haze and cirrus clouds might make it harder to observe partial phases, but they won't really hide the sun during totality, so that's good. So they won't really be an issue. Now, if it's totally overcast, outside of totality, you might not see any change. You might not see anything. It might just it might get really dark, but it's not going to get totally dark. Well, if you're within totality, nothing, and then all of a sudden, wham, it's dark as midnight. I don't remember seeing recommendations about driving with your headlights on, around 3:08 to 3:12 in the afternoon, but do it because you might not have time to turn them on. The website from which I got this information, whenisthenexteclipse.com, says that sudden midnight is really cool to see once, presumably once only. And the thing that concerns me is broken clouds, the possibility of broken clouds, something where you can get clouded out and 300 yards away they're screaming because they're seeing it. Well, that would be hard to take. All right, Bailey's beads. Okay, I don't know how well you can see this. Fact, Bailey's beads are more dramatic along the northern edge of the annular solar eclipse path because the southern lunar profile is rougher. They talk about the southern highlands on the moon where there are gazillion craters. So lots of Bailey's beads. That's why I'm saying you'll have lots of Bailey's beads at JTP. Tip number 5, you are the expert. I didn't get, this isn't from me. This is, I can't remember where I read this recently, but I agree with it. Absolutely agree with it. Have you read anything about this eclipse beyond, newspaper articles just skimming over the top? Have you visited websites that are dedicated to eclipses? Have you watched an eclipse before? If you only remember some of what we talk about tonight, congratulations, you already know more than most people you will meet at an eclipse gathering. If people don't understand what's going on, if they have questions, don't be shy. You can probably help them just as well as somebody that's a so-called expert, honestly. All right, here's the actual path in Indiana, although it's kind of hard to see. Interesting thing. The moon's shadow first touches Indiana at 3:01 Eastern Daylight Time with a speed of 1,700 miles per hour. The moon's shadow leaves Indiana at 3:12 Eastern Daylight Time with the shadow speed accelerating to 1,850 miles per hour. So that's why we can't see that shadow coming, unfortunately, because we're too flat. I regret that. There it is. Okay, tip number 6. Tip number 6, don't sweat it. Once again, this is not my tip. Remember I said talk to people after totality? I got this from a guy I talked to after the annular eclipse of May 10th, 1994, back when they didn't call it the Ring of Fire. Yeah. And we were talking and he asked, so did you see Venus during the eclipse? And I said, oh crap, I forgot. And he's, don't sweat it. And he proceeded to tell me his story about the great eclipse of 1991. He was in Baja, California, in a field someplace with 1,500 of his closest friends at that point. And totality comes and this hush settles over the crowd. And I know the hush, I don't know about everybody else, but I heard the hush during totality at Giant City. And I think this might be something that happens regularly. But anyway, so yeah, you start hearing individual voices, and some would-be expert calls out in the crowd, "Hey, look, there's Venus!" And somebody else in the crowd hollers out after him, "The hell with Venus! Look at that eclipse!" Amen. You will forget things. You're going to miss stuff that you could have seen. You know, accidents are going to happen. Don't sweat it. These things make the best eclipse stories. Honestly, they do. All right. And then for people that just aren't convinced what's so special about total solar eclipses, quite simply, a total solar eclipse is the most beautiful sight you will ever see in the sky. Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. When we observe the eclipse, we are lifted into the realm of the cosmos and experience the celestial clockwork of our solar system in real time. Once you've seen totality, you will be smitten and you'll want to see it again. It is truly a phenomenon that lives up to the hype. Yeah, and it does. All right. And another review from a slightly different perspective, XKCD online comic. The hypertext for this one. I watched the 2017 eclipse from Missouri, and it was, without exaggeration, the coolest thing I've ever seen. Notice he's got his axes. How cool it is to see in person versus how cool it sounds like it would be. Total solar eclipse off the charts. All right, do we have any questions? And websites, if anybody needs any more information, your websites. All right.
I've got one question about the, you said the 4 contact
Yeah.
points. What's the time interval from point 1 to point 4?
Oh, let me see. It depends on your location, and it depends on the eclipse. Although I have noticed we were comparing times between JTP and this is for Wabachi. The start time for most of our area, the start time is about 1:53 in the afternoon, whether you're in totality or out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's an application that you should get for your smartphone. It's going to cost you an amazing $2
Oh, no.
because it's so good. It's called Solar Eclipse Timer.
Uh-oh.
And the Solar Eclipse Timer is the app that I used in 17. And the Solar Eclipse Timer will tell you absolutely everything about the timing that you need. When first contact, second contact, everything, right up to including the point where it tells you audibly, it gives you a voice command, take off your glasses.
Oh.
And as you approach, third contact,
Mhm.
there's an actual alarm, a klaxon, get
Cool.
your attention, and another voice comes out and says, put
your
your
glasses
glasses
on.
So timer part that you were mentioning is built in. It's available for.
Does it go to the seconds?
Yes, so
It's
it-
GPS, exactly
Ooh.
right. That's
Oh,
exactly right.
wow.
So it follows you around. It's automatic. It tells you when, what were you just talking about with the white sheet and everything?
Yeah.
It
Right.
tells you all of the events that are going to occur
Oh, cool.
during the course of the eclipse. And
Oh.
it's really pretty straightforward. So I've got it loaded on my phone, and it's ready to
I,
go.
that might be the best $2 you ever spend.
Yeah, that might be.
If you're super into Bailey, actually use it to walk in and out of the edge of what the eclipse limit is, find exactly where the edge of the eclipse is gonna be, and then just be just inside that.
Yes.
That really checks Bailey.
So all of the eclipse photographers have been told to use this app, that its timing is that good for them. So that's a thing. And so another comment on the eclipse that you didn't mention, and this we were told for launches as well, and this kind of the launch experience kind of leads into this. And they said, forget the photography, put your camera down, don't worry about it. Simply look at it and watch it, because if you start messing with your camera, your phone, your equipment, you're going to miss it. You're going to absolutely be looking down because your camera isn't working right. Telescope's out where something is going wrong, and it's going to be over. And you will have missed it, and forever and a day, you'll be regretting that particular activity.
Mhm.
And do you think there's going to be any photography on the internet?
Yeah.
There might be one or two pictures.
Might
they're
be
not-
one or two.
That's true. But if you're really insistent on doing that, practice and be ready for it so that these catastrophes don't happen. Practice, practice, practice.
It's good to
So-
actually set up a whole timeline.
Yes,
Ahead of time.
it has to all be scripted out and rehearsed. That's quite true. And then you mentioned a solar wedge, Herschel
wedge.
Herschel wedge will show you really, really nice white light images.
Mhm.
Beautiful. It really
Yes.
depends on the quality of the optic in front of it.
Why, yeah,
What you won't see are prominences.
that's
You need a
true, because
hydrogen
white
alpha-
light,
You need a hydrogen alpha telescope in order to do that. So you need to have that, need to have both, and that won't cost you much. Actually, a Herschel wedge is, if you can't get them now until, the 8th, but that'll only set you back about $450.
yeah,
And a hydrogen alpha telescope figure 4,500 to 6,000, something like that. So it is the way to go.
depending on the aperture.
Yeah, so that's what mine cost anyway, and I
Yeah.
recently got it.
One other question, if you don't mind. Can you explain the path of the eclipse going from west to east as the sun
I think that's all.
travels from east to west?
Right.
I asked Neil that a week or so ago. I
Yeah,
didn't really
he
get a
war-
good
he
answer.
he warned me. He warned me, and I told him that I didn't want to answer that question without having visuals. Because,
Okay.
I mean, I understand it, but only because I've seen visuals. Only because I've seen visuals. If I remember correctly, it's because, okay, the Earth is turning at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator this way, but the moon is moving west way faster.
That's what I read. Okay, yeah. Just
Yeah.
trying to
The mo-
conceptualize
Yeah, the
that.
moon is moving west way
Moving
faster.
Faster than the earth. That's rotating.
Yeah,
No.
okay, so, yeah. Yeah, this was, yeah, this was printed off from the US Naval Observatory.
Recently?
Yeah, I can't remember what,
Okay.
I think, I was gonna say, it says what day.
Got nothing to do with it.
Okay. Any more questions, or are we, sorry.
One thing I did back in October, is for the sites that I was gonna be at, I just, I went to eclipsewise.com.
Yeah,
And clicked exactly where I was gonna be and got that data. I cut and
Yes.
pasted it into, Excel,
hmm
and then added a column and converted the universal times to local time. And
hmm
that was really helpful to have a column there with local.
yes,
So
yes.
so you can cut and paste that and generate your own sheet, pretty easily.
hmm Okay. Alaska,
Oh.
As a student here at Purdue Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
My degree is electrical engineering.
Ooh, okay.
The most comparable thing to that would be capturing real life events, translating them into something logical.
Okay.
So is it really better to just experience it and I can get all this data online? Like how good is that data that's online, is it? And how does this relate to capturing it with impulse responses along with affecting the input before your camera? Are any of these audible distortion effects, particularly from vision exclusively only stick to your vision, or are there any distortion effects that exclusively happen when using a digital or analog system that introduces imaging problems? Is-
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had any experience with capturing these differential equations of the impulse responses of certain signals.
I don't personally.
Let's go back to his first question.
Yeah.
Is it worthwhile seeing it in person, to actually being in there? And the answer is yes.
Yes,
You
definitely.
will, if we have the opportunity, if we're blessed with clear skies,
Yeah.
as you just heard, it is a lifetime experience. It's stunning. You can't predict what your response is going to be. You said this was a fourth item that I'd forgotten right up until this one.
Mhm.
But the thing is, when you're in a field of people and you're experiencing this eclipse, the field may get hushed, but then after that, the emotional response, it is so inside you, and
Yeah.
it just bursts
Yeah.
out.
Mhm.
When I was down in Hopkinsville, Kentucky,
Mhm.
and there were people that were laughing, crying, dancing, skipping. I mean, weeping. There was just the range of emotional responses was stunning. I mean, it's totally emotional. It's not intellectual at all. Just
Yeah.
seeing this happen, but was just amazing. So
Yeah.
yes, you have to experience it. If you have the opportunity, please go see it. And the data on the internet will take care of itself. There's a lot of science that's being done. I know that I know from a radio point of view, there's a few experiments that are citizen scientists kind of interactions that are going on. And there'll be a lot of data taken, but worry about it later in life to take the data. Just go for the effect on it.
My experience, the last one, I went down to like Tennessee, and I took a telescope, but I used eyepiece projection to project the picture onto a white a piece of paper, and actually it was kind of like the back of some floppy tile, vinyl tile that I had hanging around the house, and I just threw it in the truck on the way down, and I just plopped it up there. And that was great because people came by. They said, "Man, you got the hot setup," because everybody could see, as the slice got bigger and bigger, and they came by with their cell phones and stuff. And then I had another telescope that I had hooked up to a camera, and I was going to take this great series of pictures, but I didn't really practice. I thought, man, I've done this before, and I got down there and I'm fiddling. And I said, oh, screw that, and that's kind of what happened. But the neat thing is when you look overhead, after it's total, then you can take your glasses off and you see like this black circle with like a ring of fire around it. It's like,
something
it's
you've never
ungodly,
seen before.
I mean, and all the stars come out, the birds and everything, they're all acting weird, so it's kind of cool, so.
Very.
Yeah. My comment in my observing notes about totality was that I can completely understand why people through all the ages of all sorts of religious beliefs have been absolutely convinced during a total solar eclipse that the earth was about to end and the world was about to end. Because that's what it looks like.
I'll read that short story by Isaac Asimov called Nightfall. It's about a civilization, it's science fiction, it's about a civilization that has multiple suns. It never, ever, ever has a night. Except when there's this rare eclipse that happens about every 2,000 years. And so at the time their civilization is finally getting up to where we were in the 20th century, the archaeologists are finding that civilization gets burnt to the ground about every 2,000 years, because when nightfall comes, everybody goes crazy.
That sounds like an Isaac Asimov novel or a short story.
I want to answer his question directly. With AM radio, that might be the best way to set up things, set your computer up to record, make an audio file, and then go back and process the data. You want to experiment ahead of time to find what clear channels, those are the channels that are able to broadcast at higher power. Willow used to be one of those, broadcast at a higher power at night. During the day, because of the effects of the, Laura, you're my microphone. Get
Yes,
back
I
here.
know.
Okay, microphone, thank you. Anyways, the ionization of the different layers of the atmosphere interrupt the signal. That if you're in the total eclipse area, you will go ahead and be able to hear these channels. And there's an article, this is
April Sky and Telescope.
April Sky and Telescope, page
62.
62.
Observe April's eclipse with your AM radio.
So that could be a possibility. You can record an audio file and then focus on the personal experience. Here, we'll just slide that over to him. You can glance at that now.
Yeah, right.
Pass it back to him, please. To add a comment on the end of the world, one of the comments that is out of history is the idea of a dragon eating the sun and people beating drums or chanting or praying out loud until the dragon or whatever is eating the sun moves away. And it works 100% of the time. Down in Wells County, there was a public school called Poplar Grove before all the consolidation. And this goes back to the late 30s, maybe early mid 40s. I spoke to a gentleman who was on the playground when a total eclipse happened. Their science teacher, as an elementary school, their science teacher failed them, did not warn anybody. And of course, at this time, probably nobody in that part of Wells County got Sky and Telescope, and astronomy wasn't even published yet. We didn't get to that till the 70s. And so it was a complete surprise to everybody. They were out on recess, which is fortunate for the experience, but the kids started crying. The teachers ushered the kids in thinking the end of the world came. There were crocodile tears.
Eclipse rays. Eclipse rays. Some people.
No, they didn't even know, it wasn't the eclipse rays. They just knew nothing about it. And all of a sudden the sun's disappeared. So I'm done. Gene's got a comment.
At the end of things, you come close to eclipse time, the weather report says clouds are moving in. Everything you've planned for is going to be compromised. The temptation is to quit. It's a wash and forget about it. My advice to you is don't do that. If you can't travel to a place where it's clear, you can come to the observatory. And I can tell you, I've experienced that sort of thing. Back in 1970s, Ida Mary and I were chasing across southern Georgia, trying to outrun the clouds. We couldn't do that, but we stopped at a small hamlet. The high school had telescopes set up in the yard with a lot of disappointed people looking glumly at the sky. But the eclipse was coming out of the southwest. As we looked, we could see the shadow coming through the clouds. It's traveling at Mach 3. over top, everything got dark. Streetlights come on. Dogs start barking. Rooster crows. And the sunset around the edge of a horizon is always there. It was awesome. And it too is a lifetime event. So don't give up if it's cloudy. Come on out.
Okay,
One more back here.
yeah.
I still have my old 35mm camera with film. Can photographic film, either developed or fresh, be used either as to look through to see the eclipse or as a filter to take pictures?
You can't look through. That opaque film is not opaque at frequencies that you can't see. It's not, you can ruin your eyes if you use blackened photo film. So don't use that in lieu of the sunglasses. Very important safety. But yes, you can use. You can use a camera as you ordinarily would during the eclipse. You just don't want to let the bright sun hit your film. Be instant fire. Okay.
Thank you. Oh,
The film that safety glasses has, it's a rating an OD 5.0. That's safe for your eyes. They do make film that looks exactly the same, but it comes with warning labels because it's OD about 3. And that will allow your camera to take pictures, but it'll filter out enough of the light that it won't damage the camera. So it looks similar to what's in the safety glasses, but it's not, it doesn't stop as much of the light. That's about 100 times more. But your camera can take that.
I've heard Kroger is selling eclipse glasses. I don't know if that's true.
I haven't. Oh, sure, go ahead. And this isn't about this eclipse. As I understand it, you guys probably all know this, the moon is either slowly getting closer to Earth or slowly getting farther away from Earth. Farther away. How will that affect eclipses in the future?
Eventually, there will be none. Eventually.
Yeah, I heard that after about 100,000 years.
Yeah. So
So
it's like an inch a year.
We can use Mars as an example. I think it was the moon Phobos. NASA was able to get image of the eclipse of Phobos across the sun, even with the sun being further away than it is when we view it from the Earth. Phobos is nothing more than basically a large asteroid, and it looked like a transit of Venus, just because it was so far away in relationship to the image of the sun. So that will be our fate, but once again, that will be beyond our years here.
Okay, this is the eclipse, page 296. With the moon receding at 1.5 inches per year, the last total solar eclipse visible from the surface of the Earth will take place 620 million years from now. There is still time to catch one of these majestic events. I don't know, but that's what they're saying anyway. All right, so we got time. All right, if we don't have any more questions, thank you very much. Good night.